I'm here to explain you the first chapter of the book Flamingo, the last lesson by Alphonse Daudet. Let me brief you about the background. The last lesson is set in the days of Franco-Prussian War led by Bismarck. Prussia defeated France and the French districts of Alsace and Lorraine passed into Prussian hands. It showcases the fact that the oppressor wants not only territory but also dominates over the language and culture of a particular country, thus taking away even the identity of the subjugated people. This is an account of the students who were then forced to study German. The students and other citizens who identified themselves as being French rued the fact that they had not valued their mother tongue. The two protagonists of the story, Hamel and Franz, are from Alsace. Hamel is a French teacher and Franz is one of his students. The story revolves around how the war plays a pivotal role in their lives. The summary is as follows. The narrator Franz was worried as he started late for school from home. He was also very anxious about facing his teacher, Hamel, who was to question the class about participles, a topic Franz did not know anything about. He thought of running away and spending the day outdoors as it was warm and bright. He noticed the birds were chirping and the Prussian soldiers were drilling in the sawmill. All this seemed much more interesting than studying participles. However, he refused to give in to temptation and hastened off to school. On his way to school, he crossed the town hall where there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. The news displayed there was at times about lost battles or the drafts, the orders, the commanding officer. He recalled that for the last 2 years, the news displayed there had been unwelcome. He wondered what it was this time as he hurried off to school. As a rule, when school began, there was a great commotion which could be heard even in the street. It was the characteristic noise of opening and closing of desks, lessons repeated in chorus, or the teacher's ruler rapping on the table. Surprisingly, that day all was very quiet. He had thought that he would sneak into the class, taking advantage of the commotion. But the school was as quiet as Sunday morning. Peeping in through the window, he saw his classmates already in their places, and Hamel walking to and fro with his iron ruler under his arm. He had no option but to open the door and go in with all eyes staring at him. So he felt both embarrassed and frightened. Much to his amazement, Hamel saw him and very kindly told him to take his place. When he sat down at his desk, he noticed that the teacher was formally dressed in his green coat, frilled shirt, and the little black silk cap. His attire was embroidered. He never wore his dress except on formal occasions, such as inspection or prize days. He also noticed that his whole school seemed strange and serious. Moreover, on the back benches that were always empty, the villagers were sitting quietly like the students. He noticed old Horser, the former mayor, the former postmaster, and several others. All looked sad, and Horser had bought an old primer that he held upon his knees with his spectacles lying across the pages. He sat wondering till he heard Hamel announcing in a gentle tone that it was a last lesson. There was an order from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. They would get a new master the next day. Since this was the last French lesson, he wanted all of them to be very attentive. This was a shocking piece of news, and Franz at once gathered that this was a news that was displayed on the bulletin board. Franz barely knew any French, and now he would not have to learn it anymore. But somehow he was sorry for not learning his lessons. His books, that had seemed such a bother till a while back, were now precious. He felt he could not give them up. He even felt sad at the thought of Hamel going away. Surprising, since he was a person who Franz had never liked. Since this was his last lesson, Hamel had put on his fine clothes, and the old men of the village were sitting there in the back of the room because they were sorry that they had gone to school for longer. They were there as they wanted to thank Hamel for his 40 years of faithful service and to show the respect for the country that was not theirs now. Just then the writer heard his name called. It was his turn to recite the rules of participles, but he could not. He was very nervous, but Hamel said that he would not scold him, as he was sure that Franz was feeling terrible himself. He had postponed his learning, and now there was no chance of learning French. Now he would be questioned on his identity of being a Frenchman, as someone who could neither speak nor write his own language. But Hamel blamed everyone for the situation. He felt that Franz's parents were not keen that he study. On the contrary, they preferred that he worked to earn a little more money. He blamed himself for sending Franz often to water his flowers instead of having him learn his lessons. He was sorry for giving them a day off when he wanted to go fishing. Hamel added that French language was the most beautiful language in the world. It was the clearest and the most logical. Thus, it had to be guarded. When people are enslaved, the language is like the key to their prison. Then he opened a grammar book and read a lesson to the class. Franz was surprised to see how well he understood it. It seemed so simple. This was because he had never listened so carefully, and Hamel had never explained everything with so much patience. It appeared that the teacher wanted to share all his knowledge before going away. After the grammar, they had a lesson in writing. Hamel gave them new copies on which was written in beautiful handwriting, "Franz Alsace, Franz Alsace." The copies looked like flags in the schoolroom. Everyone started working very quietly with rapt attention. Franz wondered whether the pigeons on the roof would be made to sing in German. Franz looked up and saw Hamel sitting motionless in his chair. It seemed as if he wanted to fix in his mind everything in that little schoolroom. He had been there for 40 years, and now it must break his heart to leave it all and the country the next day. But he had decided to teach the very last moment. After the writing, they had a lesson in history. At the back of the room, Hauser put on his spectacles and held his primer. He tried to spell the letters with them. He was crying and his voice trembled with emotion. All of them felt equally emotional. Franz never forgot the last lesson. Then the church clock struck 12. The bell announced the time for prayer. They heard the trumpets of the Prussians returning from drill. Hamel stood up, but he could not talk as emotions choked him. All he could do was to write "Vive la France" on the blackboard. Then he took support of the wall, and without a word he signaled to them to go. That's all about the lesson. Now I would like you to brief you about the two protagonists. Hamel, a sincere French teacher. He knew his subjects well. He was passionate about French language and considered French the clearest, the most beautiful, and the most logical language in the world. He feels that language is the key to a person's sense of freedom. He advises the villagers to hold on to French despite the ban on using the language. He is proud of being French. He is upset and distressed by the occupation of Alsace by the Germans, attached to his own town, school, and people. It is hard taskmaster, particularly is about the discipline. He emphasizes proper learning of the subjects. The students are very scared of him. He is an honest and sensitive man. He is shattered by the news of Alsace occupation. He blames himself for being selfish at times. At the arrival of Prussian soldiers, becomes overwhelmed with emotion and his voice chokes. He blames himself for not being sincere and taking holiday or going for fishing. Hamel is an emotional, hard-working, patriotic, loyal, honest, and a sensitive man. The second important character is Franz. Franz is a sensitive and innocent boy. He blames himself for ignoring his lessons. He wonders about the German takeover. He loves nature. He enjoys sunshine, bird watching, chasing butterflies. He is conscious of his student duties. He wishes that he had prepared for the class. He doesn't like being scolded in the class. He is an observant schoolboy. He notices even little details on his way to school. He is quick to observe the changes in his surrounding. He observes Hamel's effort to control his emotions. Franz is observant, sensitive. He is a nature lover, sincere and empathic. Thank you.